Hi friends, welcome back. So I want to have a chat with you about the fires going on in LA right now. And if you or anyone that you know is being affected, I hope you're safe and doing okay. I can just tell you on my social media, I have a lot of friends that live in LA. I used to live in LA, and there's people who have actually evacuated their homes. I just saw another forest fire started recently, and this is an important topic to talk about. So let's just jump right in. So first, I guess 100,000 people are displaced. Even if you're not in the USA, you've probably been seeing the news of this. We've been getting news about this here in Korea also. It is still ongoing, and I think there's 4 fires in total in LA. I just texted a friend and was like, "Hey, how you doing, etc." He said he's not affected, but he said the winds are really, really heavy. And in terms of a cause, I don't think anyone knows quite yet now. But according to my friend, just asked him because he said because the winds are so heavy, it could be any number of things. It could be a campfire, right? In multiple places. It could be powered down power line or whatever. Who knows? Because the winds are so heavy. You also have a drought that's been happening in LA for a while, so things are really, really dry. And also, you have some trees that needed to be cleaned up. So I did see some of that stuff. They put out a red flag warning. So this has been sort of something how can I don't expect it's the right word, just high risk of, and it just turned out to be really bad this year. This is more than just California. So I just want to show you guys, there's a map of there are other places that are ongoing fires. So in Arizona, there's a couple, Colorado, I think that's South Dakota. You also have Northern California, and then that should be Montana, which is Tucker. If you guys are affected by any of these, please, let us know how you're doing. Here's a map of LA. So it's the Palisades, Sunset, Eaton, and Hearst. Like I was saying, I used to live here, so I know where all these places are. And at the moment, just looking at the map, it looks like if you're kind of close to the, let's call it tree line, you're more likely to be affected. So the middle of the city hasn't been hit yet, but is there a possibility that could go other places? Sure, certainly it could be, but at the moment, it just seems like it's mostly sort of if you're near the trees. The smoke, however, is affecting everyone in the area. So you can see here, this is just an idea of just you guys know this. There's just stuff burning everywhere. And I remember it was 'cause there was fires when I was there, and I remember it was on the hills, and I was just thinking about it just kind of hangs out in the valley, and it's everyone's affected essentially, and this is the way the winds are going. I'm sure there's several weather channels out there that can do a better job with me. I'm not necessarily going to go about the direction of the fire, these kind of things, but the winds are just really heavy. That's like 100-mile-an-hour kind of stuff. This is the sort of pictures that you're seeing. The destruction is just awful. So it's a shame. There's no other way to put it. And it's multiple neighborhoods, and it's just so big, right? So you can't get to all of it, and it's still ongoing. My understanding with this stuff is, and I also want to talk to you about insurance. There are many insurance companies that have been dropping insurance. So something like State Farm dropped, I think it was 69% of coverage there. And I actually talked about this about a week or so ago. There were some people that felt like that they were dropped unfairly, that they weren't even necessarily in a danger zone, but that's something that the insurance companies are doing because they want to protect themselves, which I completely understand. And so, I think we have a couple issues that I just are important to bring up. One is we have the climate change issue. Another, you could certainly bring up the political management issue, right? So that's something that the Elon Musk and the Trumps will want to talk about. We'll know more about that going through, and with any of these things, I just want to have solutions to this stuff. I think that's the best way that we should all think. It's not really about party. It's about, hey, let's help out our fellow Americans. That's, I don't think it was anything crazy. Unfortunately, though, this is just how it is. We're in a situation to where, and it's not just California, you could talk about Florida, right? Or it's not just Florida, it's North Carolina, even South Carolina, but just because we had the storm Helene. I lived through Katrina. If you guys remember this one, that was hurricane. That was like the New Orleans area. I've seen these kind of disasters before, and it's awful. And I always feel sorry, very, very sorry for anyone who loses their home. The first thing my wife said when she saw some of the stuff, she's like, oh, referring to the more wealthy areas, she's like, oh, these people probably have insurance. They're probably going to be okay. Obviously you don't want to lose your home, but it just, in terms of wealth, but I mean, you don't know. And in this day and age, if people have insurance or not, and definitely the lower incomes, they may not. The people have said on the channel to where they have friends, say, for example, in Florida, to where even if you do have insurance, your rates went up so high that you're just like, well, I'll just take my chances. And in this day and age, my personal opinion is this is an example where like home ownership's not so great. If you're gonna want to live in an area where there's a threat of a natural disaster, which I just think you have to talk about it. That's why I'm talking about it with you. I know we have a lot of older people in the audience. You guys don't understand this, right? For many people, you lose your home, you lose everything, and it's completely awful. So that's why I think it's an important discussion to have. If you're a younger person, you're probably like, man, I'm never getting a home. It's not worth it. And it's just practicality, right? Because that's where home ownership isn't necessary for everyone. If you are going to own home, get insurance. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But the problem is like if your premiums are so high, and so then you're in that dilemma. So I can understand why some people would cancel their home insurance, but I think you're playing a risky game. The Hurricane Helene damage was between 95 to 110 billion. I haven't seen any estimates quite yet on the LA one. I mean, it's still ongoing, and it's like 4 different places, and it's so hard to put out. This is not just LA, not just Florida. This is just a map of various places around the country in the USA where we have natural disasters. I can't speak to all countries in the world, but I know people watch this from different places. I'd just like to hear from you. Have you experienced something like this? I know sometimes you'll see flooding in various countries, say in Europe. I'm not sure if I've ever seen something in something like in Australia. You guys can let me know. Here in Busan, where we live, we always talk about like, hey, do you want to live on the beach? And it's like these cool apartments on the beach, etc. But like I'll just say this: we make disaster movies about tidal waves coming in, and that's a real concern. It just takes one, right, and everything's gone. We had flooding in Seoul. That was 2 years ago. And there was a bunch of water damage everywhere. Like water damage is no joke. Obviously, fire, water, any number of things. And that's why I'm showing going through with you guys, both just the practical considerations of these things, and like I said, for many, your home is everything, right? It's just a real shame. I used to live here, and I feel sorry to see this stuff. In terms of California, you can see this. So this is like homes that are in risk. I think the way you read this, it says building in the wildlands, nearly 1 in 3 California homes lies in a wildland urban interface in or near dense vegetation. Some 4 million are in zones especially vulnerable to wildfires. So a lot of people live, in a kind of area where you're at very high risk, and chances are the insurance is gonna drop you. And that's so I think we're gonna probably go in a world of post insurance, right? There's been a bunch of because of the drought, so things are dry, and then some of the trees fall down, and I guess that sort of makes it more susceptible to these large fires. It takes time to clean up this stuff. California does spend money on this stuff. It says here money spent, or actually, I'm sorry, this would be the U.S. Forest Service. So you can see this is the amount of money. So it's been going up. So like I said, you have a combination of things, right? You have the climate change. You have just the general cost. So because there's always various things to spend money on. So it's not a simple fix. And then some people are going to take their chances. Some people are not. This is a percentage of California that's been in a drought. So the dark red means more drought, right? And then sort of yellow is less drought. So, but basically it's going up. That was the first thing my friend said. So I asked him a question because he's a longtime LA person. I only lived there for a few years myself. But he was saying as a kid, asking about climate change things. So there's never been a ton of rain in California or Southern California, right? It never rains in Southern California. You guys know the song. I can't sing that well, so don't worry about it. But he was just saying with the climate change, you got more winds, so things will spread faster, or maybe the drought season may be longer, etc. For anyone who's longtime residents of California, you can let me know. It's kind of more noticeable. When I was there was a drought also. I remember they said like you couldn't wash your cars on certain days and that kind of stuff. Some places, just because of the way that the weather and climate is changing, it may be more difficult to live in, and we'll have to rethink about where we live. I remember when I was a kid hearing older people saying, I'm only living on a hill. I'm not living by the beach. When I was a kid, I always thought that was weird. Like, why would you want to live on the beach? The beach is really pretty, right? Stuff like that. So I'm just using an example of that. But no, that stuff's real. And I think we're really gonna have to rethink sort of where we decide to put our homes. And again, this is a serious financial consideration. Trump actually tweeted out back in 2019. I'm bringing up the Trump stuff because I actually had forgotten about this crazy stuff. Now that he's gonna be president again, we're gonna have to deal with it all over again, like the crazy stuff, and it's every day. But just you got to pay attention to stuff because it does matter. So here's what he said back in 2019. Trump said, billions of dollars are sent to state of California for forest fires that, with proper forest management, would never happen. Unless they get their act together, which is unlikely, I have ordered FEMA to send no more money. It is a disgraceful situation, lives and money. So I don't think, and at least you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any president in U.S. history has ever acted like this to where like, I'm just not going to help you guys and other Americans because I don't like you. It's like, great, and there's that. People actually do call him out on this stuff. So this was on a response to that tweet. Brian says, then the next massive forest fire in California is directly on you and only you. A single death occurs and it's blood on your hands. This is impeachable offense in and of itself, pathetic. Will said, this is again back in 2019, the fire started on federal land. You as chief executive are responsible for that land. You cut funding from the agency responsible for that land. California is a donor state. You are a terrorist. Stop holding Americans hostage over money. This is a disgrace. Eugene says, as Tony Psaki said, you're Forrest Trump. And someone else said, Forrest, be quiet, Forrest Trump. So I was just saying, this is part of, unfortunately, the game that Trump plays. Everything's about tweeting mean things, and if you're not part of my mafia or doing whatever, I'm gonna shut you out. And it's just it's no way to behave. But this is where we're at. I've lived through several presidents and administrations. Even if I don't necessarily agree with everyone's particular policy, just Trump's the only guy that just acts in this way. And I've lived with multiple presidents. Like, usually in a disaster, the president shows up, they offer to help people, and they do, and they're gracious and that kind of sort of thing. That, like, regardless of which president is, Trump's this like way on the outlier there. Biden and what's his name, Newsom are working together. Trump, obviously Trump and Musk are criticizing them, etc., blaming it all on them. As I said, it could be a combination of things. I think one of the things I saw was interesting is when you look at, and this is all on Musk platform. So they're saying, oh, they, have, was it 17 million less this year than last year or something like that. So it's a number like that, but it was like a budget in the billions. So it was like a very small percentage. I think that was the fire budget or something. But I'm acknowledging that. And whether or not they could have done a better job of the cleanup or controlled burns to try to lessen the fire. I can see how that could be a thing. Sure, I can see that. But to completely ignore, and so with the Trumps and the Musks, to completely ignore the effects of climate change, I think that's pretty ludicrous. Because again, as literally just a friend of mine, just to, hey, what's going on? And he's like, the winds are really, really bad, and it makes it easy to spread. And we're in dry season. It's been a drought, so does politics have to? Well, does politics have to do with the wind? You could say, well, it depends on if you believe in the climate change and stuff or not. But science doesn't care what you believe. One thing that was kind of interesting about this when I was reading through this stuff, they were talking about how Trump was blaming, Newsom and Biden and stuff like that. And he brought up some sort of water restoration thing. But it turned out that like Trump was the one who diverted the water from Northern California to Central California. Of course he did, right? But he's not going to mention that stuff. I'm just saying, I just read through these things. And God, I forgot how much of an idiot this guy was. I didn't think we'd have to be talking about this again, but we are. Because if you go back and like look back at the crap he said in 2019, I'm just reminding you because you remember how much of an idiot this guy is. Trump suggests nuking hurricanes to stop them from hitting America. Right. This is what I have to deal with. So this was the quote from Trump way back when. They're starting forming off the coast of Africa as they're moving across the Atlantic. We drop a bomb inside the eye of the hurricane and it disrupts it. Why can't we do that? And then I guess the people in the room at the time were like, oh, we'll look into that. Later, Trump pretended like he didn't ever say that. And then the White House officially said, We don't comment on private discussions that the president may or may not have had with this national security team. And I'm just laughing because they're like, and I, guys, we're dealing with people's lives, we're dealing with people's property, we're dealing with a lot of money, and I just wish we had adults in the room. But again, this is Trump. He'll be the next 4 years, I guess. So then, Trump was saying, oh, that story about the nuke and the hurricane, it's all fake news. People responded. Ryan said, fake news is the enemy of the people. Americans are with you, sir. So he got some people that like Trump. Tony says president who doesn't believe in climate change, look directly at the solar eclipse and his effing dumbass. Seems legit. James says, you definitely said it. You're exactly the kind of moron who would attempt to start a nuclear war with the wind. And then Jeff says, sit down, you ludicrous goober. I do remind you, though, that Trump sells Trump guitars. He sells gold shoes. And at one point, if you guys remember the whole Sharpie thing, he had said something where the hurricane went somewhere, was going somewhere where it wasn't going to go. And then this was like their official map. And then he, changed the map himself with the Sharpie, if you guys remember this. I actually forgot about all the stupid crap that he did. So anyway, I'm mentioning all these things because, this is part of what we're going to have to deal with going forward. And I fear for a situation to where there's a particular state or group of Americans that really do need sincere help, and Trump will just turn his back on them, which I think is a poor way and poor leadership. And on top of that, I think insurance is going to be hard to come by in many places, and that will drastically change the way we think about home ownership, 100%. So I just wanted to have a chat with you guys about this whole conversation, and I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts about home insurance these days? Does it affect the way that you think about buying a home, staying in the location that you're at? Do you think about climate change? I've noticed on Zillow when people go shopping for this stuff, or say in the housing market, like looking to where to live, climate is actually a big consideration these days, right? If your house could be flooded or fire or hurricane, etc., or tornado, that's something that you should definitely consider. So don't sleep on these things. And again, if you have any family or friends that are affected by this particular fire in LA, I hope you're doing okay, and hope they're doing also as well. So thank you for your time, everyone, and I'll catch you on the next video.